Good morning to everyone. As you can hear, my voice is almost lost. This is actually why we have
a
joint
party.
presentation.
I wasn't, you know.
This is actually we decided to have a joint presentation. No, we are delighted this morning to be in front of you and to discuss what we have done in the past year or so and explain what are the challenges on the telco side and how, as a technology vendor, we are proud to be in a position to answer these challenges and share a vision which I guess will raise also questions on your side.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. As you hear, I was not at the party, so my voice is quite okay. And if you break down, tell me. I think I can also cover you.
I can rely on you.
And I think what we try to do is actually, we play a bit ping pong, and we will explain some of the challenges that we have that are reflecting the challenges of the industry, both on vendor and on operator side. And so actually, I think I will kick off the first one. This is about OTT. Here I go on the first slide. Are we there? When I was actually searching a picture for this slide to say, is OTT the devil or the angel? I came to that left one with the two whales or sharks, and after a while a guy said, hey, one of them is an orca. And I said, hey, this fits well, you know, because these guys are called orca. And we actually use them to deploy platforms we will speak later on. But the challenge I have here, and this is my question to Chem. If you see on the bottom of this slide, we are in 7 countries. We are market leader in TV. We are either number 1 in 5 of them or a very good number 2. We have significant market shares. We are a pay TV operator, which is very successful. And we have put millions and tens and hundreds of millions of money into this, and now suddenly OTT is becoming more and more present and comes from outside in. And here the question is, and it's I asked to Chem, is this actually good or bad for us, and what does a vendor actually do to help us to take it from the positive side?
Obviously, you would expect me to say it's a good question. It's a good question.
Thank you.
Actually, we don't see OTT as a threat. We see OTT as a new mechanism for delivering content to the viewers. And as a technology vendor, what we have to do is actually, and this is the purpose of this slide, we have to design something which is going to serve any device, which is going to be available through any delivery mechanism, traditional broadcast, IPTV, OTT, mobile. And the same platform has to embrace all these different technologies, mechanisms for delivery, all the target devices. And we have also to interface our solution with any vendor which is going to sit in the head end in terms of content ingestion, content management systems, OSS, BSS. So the platform has to be designed in such a way that at the end of the day, OTT is again an opportunity, which means opening up new distribution channels, targeting specific market segments. So obviously, traditional pay TV operators or broadcasters might feel, okay, this is a threat. But again, let's think the other way around. Let's take that as an opportunity, and from a technology standpoint, deal with vendors which are in a position to really deal with the challenge and meet the market demands and the operator's demands or the broadcaster's demands. Actually, in that respect, there is a technology challenge, but there is also a market challenge. As you said, Thomas, you are running operation in many different countries in Europe. I think you have 7 countries plus Germany. And usually we think about the TV business as a volume business. Like, we have to deploy on a large, massive scale to make it profitable. So when you have to deal with small countries, obviously having a dedicated platform for each country, even if it's a multi-distribution platform, OTT, IPTV, etc., you might feel this is quite expensive to deploy such a platform for small countries. So I think that's a challenge. And in the case of Deutsche Telekom also, because you have consolidated the marketplace, you have different also types of markets that you are addressing, different sizes, different maturity in terms of the solution which have been already deployed. So I think this is an important challenge. And if I look at the portfolio of customers that we have, this is a question which is always coming back. You can see on this slide different types of companies that we are dealing with, large telcos like Deutsche Telekom or Orange, broadcasters like TF1, pay TV operators like Canal+. At the end of the day, they are all asking for the same thing. I want one platform which is going to serve all the needs that I have. I want a common architecture because I want to make the costs lower. I want to make operations much more easier for me. And that's a true challenge. So I'm coming back to you with a question, which is, on your side, with all the diverse countries that you have, the different maturities in terms of, as I said, the operations. You had also many different platforms to deal with, legacy platforms. So how can you deal with it?
Okay. So I think the first thing we had to do before we talk about technology is actually to look at what we inherited over the past, which was built, in a fragmented way. And what you see on the left side is the footprint which we are in, which is actually reaching from Slovakia down to Greece, with these 7 countries: Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Romania, and Greece. I'm quite fast on this in the meantime. And we had, 2 years ago, when we started this activity I'm talking about, we had like 52 set-top boxes from 26 vendors, 5 CaaS platforms, 3 to 5 middleware platforms. We call it the zoo. And the zoo is an organization which is typically not very profitable because you need for every animal a different cage, different food, different people to treat it. And so we decided that maybe a farm is a more efficient organization where you have one species and you can feed it with big volumes of food that you buy cheaper. And that's actually, and that's the middle of this slide, when we actually decided to concentrate our engineering efforts, because that's the core of deciding for the right technologies in Budapest. We are not in that building. We're actually on the other side of the river. And that's where I am running the so-called TV Service Center, which is actually putting together all the engineers in 7 countries to work together on the consolidated platforms, consolidated specifications, and then we go actually on the market to find the vendors that deliver us the solutions. And we are showing within 2 years now into operation that it is highly efficient. And actually, it's not only us who enjoy a stronger engineering muscle that gives us better platforms and better technology and faster time to market. We also see that the reaction on the vendor side is quite positive, because sometimes it's difficult to deal with 7 small countries that include very difficult places to reach, like Montenegro or Skopje in Macedonia. And so actually, we have consolidated this, we are working on that, and we have also already done the first very successful projects, which maybe we'll be talking about later. So that brings me to a question to Chem, because, I mean, you are highly and heavily involved in security as well. I tried to depict the situation which we had traditionally in the TV business, where both the content, the access network itself, and the way how we deliver, but also the data we have about our customers are extremely protected. This is the core of our business, to protect all those things from being hacked, from being stolen, from being shared, and so on. And so actually, the more and more we get cloud approaching us with vendors that offer cloud, with competitors using cloud, ourselves being highly committed to use the cloud, we have more and more questions about how secure is this? How sure can we be that the cloud is not actually blurring the picture and is giving us less control over our business, which would actually not allow us to have a good control over the partnerships we have, for example, with content owners, and also to secure our customer data. So, Chem, what do you think?
Again, this is a good question. Yeah, this is a challenge. For instance, in the case of Viaccess-Orca, we see ourselves as a product company. So we are trying to design the best-in-class products, and obviously, based on the market requirements, our customers' requirements, we deploy these products. I think cloud brings a new set of challenges. And usually people think about cloud as something which allows basically to lower the price of entry into the marketplace. But I think there is a more fundamental change as a technology vendor for us, which is moving from a product play to a service play. Because when you talk about cloud, it brings a lot of new requirements, because you are operating a service, actually. We are already doing that, for instance, on the security side of our business, managing rights for a number of our customers. So we understand what it means. And there are very strong implications. You really need to own the ecosystem that you provide, in the sense that you really need to make sure that each component is fully reliable, and security in that respect is a fundamental request. And I think we will see more and more security issues that we will have to deal with. Every week now we can see in the newspapers that some networks have been attacked. Privacy also is a huge concern. So you can think about the cloud as an infrastructure which is going to manage billions of transactions in some way or form, and there would be a need to secure this transaction, to secure the network access. In order to that, you really need to make sure that you own the different components. As I said previously, you have to manage a service. What does it mean? It means that you have to provide something which is working 24/7, which means that if you operate somewhere, in Europe, and you have a customer which is out of Australia or Latin America, a phone call is going to happen in the middle of the night, and you need people to be able to deal with it. And it has an impact on your organization. You have labor regulations, so it's sometimes quite complex to put in place. You need to maintain and develop the solution all the time. In that respect, I think we all have to learn from what's happening on the web. As an example, some of the big web players like Facebook, they are doing what they call drops, which is basically a new version of their software several times a day sometimes. Several times a day. Usually when we work in the pay TV environment or the broadcast environment, we are talking about projects which take 18 months, 2 years to implement.
It's one time in 7 years.
Yeah, one time in 7 years.
At least on some satellite
and when you go back to your engineers and say, oh, by the way, maybe the new version should be required in 6 months, they look at you and say, wow, 6 months, that's not a lot. Again, we are talking about continuous developments and drops, so this is about agile, which is about A/B testing. And you need to incorporate that if you want to be successful in the cloud environment. You are responsible for the service, and obviously you have to deal with requirements in terms of when the service is not available, what's happening, what kind of infrastructure you put in place also in that respect. So this is about the guarantees that you can offer as a technology vendor to your customers about that. And again, going back to organization skills, mindset, continuous development, this requires a specific mentality, I would say, sometimes new skill set and new organization. So this is a challenge. We see cloud as something that all vendors need to embrace. We see strong market requests. I think we'll see, obviously, in terms of when operators are going to move to the cloud, some of them are going to do it very fast. Some bigger operators, obviously, it will take more time. But we see that as a trend, which requires also on our side to embrace new challenges.
Yeah. I think, just to comment on this one, Chem,
yeah, sure.
I think some of the big paradigm shifts we are actually seeing is that we will more and more go for models where we actually operate services not alone, but someone else is doing it for us. And so actually we are cloudifying things not only in the way that we use the cloud ourselves, but someone else is using it. And therefore, I think the trusted partnership is very important, because we are actually outsourcing part of things that normally are core business to a vendor or to a partner, and that is actually requiring a very tight partnership that we can trust.
So having said that, we have identified a number of challenges like market fragmentation, one platform to serve all needs, going to the cloud. So there is then usually a question that each customer has, which is, what should I do? Should I go to one single company which is going to provide everything from A to Z? Or should I basically pick up the best-in-class, partners and ecosystem and deal with it? It's like, going to this kind of kiosk. I don't know where it is. Maybe it's in New York or wherever. Or basically, going to, as I said, a vendor which can bring everything to the operator.
Okay. I like that picture, because actually we traditionally come from a time when we prefer to go to the department store. If I think about Paris, where you live, Galeries Lafayette or something like that, yeah. That normally gives you a good shopping experience, because they have everything you want, but unfortunately they don't have everything. And we are now in times where, with the internet and all the web stuff coming, we need much more things and much faster. And also what the department stores normally have, they are quite expensive, because you pay a premium for that. And so when we were looking into getting an end-to-end solution that is provided by one single partner, we rather quickly identified that that is not going to work. And that's why actually we decided that the solution we have to go for, and I tried to depict that on this picture, the solution is an ecosystem. And I insist on the word ecosystem. It's written with a C and not with a G, because sometimes that is mixed up by some of the partners. We are interested in building a value chain together with our partners. Also there are sometimes words mixed up. It's a value chain, not a food chain. The difference is in a value chain to try to help each other, in a food chain to try to eat each other. And so actually what we are looking for is an ecosystem where we would define the main building blocks of an end-to-end TV architecture and source them from the best-in-class vendors that we can find. That has two implications. One of them is we have to specify the borderlines of all those puzzle pieces in a way that at the end they fit together. That is typically done either by standardization, or it is done by a very tight alignment with a couple of vendors that work together. In the best case, they already did that before you start, because then you can take pre-integrated solutions. Secondly, it still requires someone who takes the end-to-end responsibility, because the more pieces you put together, the less someone would say, okay, I can be blamed for if something is wrong, and then I'll fix it for you. So we have taken, also with my group in Budapest and in the other countries that is engineering their solutions, we have taken the decision that we will take the responsibility for the end-to-end integration of a platform ourselves, which is quite new. We would then actually specify the borderlines of all of these different blocks and then source them from the industry, mainly in a dual vendor scenario. So we would typically have two vendors for the strategic building blocks, which makes us also less vulnerable to dependencies. And this is where we are. And if you remember the slide where I showed the zoo with, I think, 50 logos on it, they hardly fit actually the map. We are currently down to much less. We are down to 2 set-top boxes, 2 platforms. On the CAS, we are just concentrating. The DRM is getting less and less. So I think at the end of the day, such an ecosystem could consist of maybe 12 to 15 vendors that are highly committed to support it. And actually, the more it becomes a viable ecosystem and the more we can show that it is working in the field, others can join. And then over time, I think, and I'm permanently approached by other operators saying, how far are you with your approach? Then actually others will pick up and they will join more and more. And so it's not creating a standard, but it's just creating de facto business that is working, that is in the field, and that is extremely efficient. So I wouldn't go into the details of these slides. You see also there is a couple of different colors. The white ones just indicate that this is not my business to develop that or to actually source that, because I have no impact on the multi-screen device OSs. I am not developing iOS or Android or something based on Windows.
That would be big news, Deutsche Telekom
That
developing
would be
iOS.
a real big news if we would do that. We are not doing chipsets. But for example, we are doing the UI. We develop the UI ourselves because that's how we speak to our customer, and then we implement that. And since we are actually committed to work with the best-in-class partners, we have to decide that we cut it in a separate block so we can actually decide to choose partners that work with us on that specific element and make the best out of it. The thing in the middle is also important to mention. I mean, this is our core business, to get data and connectivity to people, but clearly the access itself is not part of the TV activity. I could not do all of that, but what you see there is quite interesting. Except DVB-T, there is no access technology that we are not using in the DT group to provide video to customers. We have currently between 3.5 and 4 million customers, paid TV customers in the what we call European footprint of DT. That is all the countries I mentioned before, so it's not including Germany. We have mix of satellite, hybrid satellite, cable, IPTV, and then we overlay over the whole thing OTT. So actually, and we even do some very specific and exotic things that haven't been done by many other operators. For example, in Hungary, we are doing IPTV over DOCSIS, which I think is a very special variant of doing IPTV, because we just had found out that for us it was more convenient when we started IPTV in Hungary in our cable networks, because in some areas of the country there is no copper and we have just cable there, that we could use the same set-top box, the same platform, the same end-to-end TV ecosystem, even using DOCSIS as a transparent broadband. And this made actually the efficiency of our IPTV deployment much higher, because if not, we would have to do another DVB-C-based solution. So it's a quite fragmented network topology, and that also means we have to harmonize on the platform side. So today, head-end, content management, platform, all those things are specified across all access technologies, and they are specified across all the countries. So one of the key features I'm requiring partners like VO to comply to is multi-tenancy, because more and more in the future, we will actually operate services more centrally and provide them from one source to 7 countries at the same time. And therefore, it's very important not only to talk about what is the focus today, how we get platforms and technology in place, but later on how we operate them. Because in the future, I think the OpEx is much more important to focus on, because on the CapEx side, I think the consolidation of our purchasing power, and you are suffering a bit from that, I think, has helped us to increase the pressure on vendor side and get our prices into a good level. So now I would come with my last question. You see April 1st, and this is not a joke. Last year on April 1st, Telekom Romania, which actually at that time was still called Rom Telecom, they called us and they said, we have invited the Prime Minister of Romania to a press event on the 12th of September. That's where we want to launch a new TV product. And then we went to the VO guys and said, can we deliver? And the answer was yes. And we said, but you must be sure it has to work. It will be commercially launched across the whole country. By the way, the company will change the name from Rom Telecom to Telekom Romania, so there was a big branding exercise going along with it as well. We have to put magenta everywhere in the new UI. And we want you to to work with a couple of partners that we already have. And for the ones we don't have, bring us the ones you think are the ones that work best. And so you see actually a number of vendors that are also around here that I would consider part of this ecosystem. And then actually we kicked off the project on April 8. I think April 8 was the kickoff meeting in Bucharest. And now Chem actually should explain you how we achieved that.
So I think it's a kind of world record, and it was not a joke, but it was a very intense, as you can imagine, intense project. And I think on our side we are very proud of what we achieved. What we think, as Thomas mentioned, the goal is to bring the best-in-class partners and
as you see, I'm German. I required to have that.
You required that one. I wanted to have a French one, but it's very old now, so we have not done very well.
This was the only thing where we had a dispute about, actually.
That's fun. If we have only this kind of disputes, I'm happy to have them. So we were asked, as Thomas said, to bring some key components and create really an ecosystem. So we see ourselves like a coach, of a football team, which means you have different players. Not only you have to pick the best players that you have, but also make them play together, which is really the difficult part, because otherwise you don't need really a trainer. So you need to make sure that there is a team spirit, that they are all working in the same direction. And we had this very, very difficult task, which is deliver by September 12th, because the Prime Minister was there, and basically there was no other option but delivering. So you can see it's a kind of football playground. I'm not sure you can see it very well, but there are different components, different bricks, and we were basically responsible for delivering not only the product that as VO is ours, basically what we call the service delivery platform, or our recommendation technology, which is called Compass, but bring different parties. And some of the names that were on the previous slides were part of the partners ecosystem that we created for TV applications, for quality of experience, for NPVR, for many different components. And the way we saw ourselves is really, making sure that all the parties working together. So people would think about it like, a traditional system integrator role. You can see, obviously, some similarities. But again, with such a time frame, I would say this was an unusual system integration project because all the partners had to take a strong level of risk to commit, to deliver, and to be on time. And I think, again, we can all be very proud of what we achieved because on September 12th, the service was live. The Prime Minister seemed to be very happy. And I think Rom Telecom, which at that time became Telekom Romania, was also very happy. And actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was really the new TV service was really the brand new thing that people could see as consumers as a change from the former Rom Telecom to the new Telekom Romania with the branding exercise that Thomas has described. So time to market was a real challenge, but working in a true partnership spirit and bringing the right partners is something that made us in a position to deliver successfully this project. And I think that's all about it. And we are right on time to have some questions. Yeah. It seems that my voice was fine. So
thank you.
I can still make maybe another 5 minutes.
Your voice held up perfectly.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a quick question for you. One of the things that you said that I thought was very interesting was owning all of the ecosystem. But there are some parts you can't. So like delivering to an iPhone or an Android phone.
Yep.
How does that influence the platform? How secure are those delivering to those platforms?
Yeah, obviously for us it's another challenge. A good example is that we have a technology called the Secure Player technology, which is addressing mostly mobile devices and which is wrapping up a video player and security. And basically every time there is a new Android version or a new iOS version, you have to deal with it. So it's back to the organization that you have to put in place to deal with this challenge, which means that you need to establish a close relationship to these guys and have teams that could be very reactive in terms of processes, also set up the right processes. So like many things in life, there are things that you don't control, so you have to adapt, put in place the right organization and deal with them. But this is a challenge for us as Viaccess-Orca, but this is a challenge also for all our competitors. So in that respect, we are all racing the same race with sometimes the same hurdles.
Yeah. So sort of related to that, Thomas, the OTT flavor of your service, is that basically identical between all markets? And what are the differences? Is it just UI tweaks for the right brand name, or is it basically identical?
I think if you look at the consumer, when I started my activity, people told me, yeah, but my guys are different to others, and so we really digged a bit more into finding out that. And honestly, people on the sofa watching TV are everywhere the same, The mindset when they watch TV is very comparable. There are slight differences in the flavors of which sport they prefer. So in Hungary, football is not really popular, but water polo empties the streets. So from that point of view, the user doesn't make a big difference. We have a very strong differentiation on the content portfolio. This is our strength actually in the markets. But technically, an iPhone is an iPhone, and a Galaxy tablet is a Galaxy tablet. So we are trying to harmonize as much as possible. Still actually leave our countries the choice to select the right product out of a catalog, which traditionally every country has developed a product that fits exactly the needs they had. As soon as something changes on the market by a competitor offering something, by a new entrant coming, they had to run after that and do something. What I do now is actually just the opposite. I specify something that can deliver everything.
Everywhere.
So openness, speed is very important. The speed, I think, and that was said here. This was the speed we just presented of 6 months for a full IPTV and OTT platform. The speed for actually bringing in a new app is even shorter. We are talking about weeks in some cases, and there I need the platform to do that because I cannot run in 7 countries and do that 7 times, you know? So I am, from a technical side, mostly interested in a commonality, and then give marketing the tools to decide that maybe karaoke is working better in Croatia because they like to sing Croatian songs while others don't do that. This is not my job because I'm not sitting in those countries.
Yeah. Your questions? Goodness. Oh, no questions.
There's one there.
There's one there, yeah.
Just one second. I think a microphone's coming to you.
Yeah, because otherwise it's even worse than not having this.
Yeah, good morning. I would like to know if, for instance, in the use case of Telecom Romania, you had a common back-end, common platform for both the STB, delivery on the STB, and the second screen.
That's a good question. Because traditionally we had OTT platforms and we even had a separate headend for satellite, one for IPTV and one for cable. Because they were traditionally actually created at different points in time, so they grew like organically. And secondly, sometimes they just came in by acquisition. And so the zoo I mentioned at the beginning is not only because it was not well planned or something like that, it just is a natural evolution that over years this is fragmenting more and more. What we have defined today is very clearly a scenario where OTT is served from the same platform. Because you could probably get an optimized platform for OTT with some real advantages that are more OTT related. But if I want to give a seamless service to the customer, thinking of billing, CRM, and all those things, I would have to do that effort twice. And if you're in the telecom business, if you do a project, as soon as you say IT and integration with OSS, BSS, this is where the money comes into game, when the costs go up, you know? And so actually, replicating things is not good, and that's why we decided we go into a very, very harmonized approach where the same thing is delivered out of the same platform, both things of the same platform. Currently, because of our structure, also our governance structure, we still do a discrete platform in every country. Long term, and I think this was announced in Barcelona at the Mobile World Congress by our CEO, we go for what we call a pan-European network that would actually allow us to also centralize at different places services and run them across countries. But this will require just more development on the network side as well.
Have just for the delivery part, is it for delivering over set-top box? Is it a multicast delivery you are doing, or are you delivering from a CDN for live, for instance?
I mean, we are delivering for the set-top boxes in IPTV multicast. On the OTT side, we can do either or. I mean, this depends a bit on how the traffic grows up, how the customer take rate is. And I think midterm or long term, probably what might be interesting for us in the industry is that we have kind of a seamless handover from multicasting to unicasting, because you do not need to multicast a channel that is only watched by 3 guys, you know, but maybe half a day later they all watch it because something is happening. And then I think we are still a bit static between what we broadcast, especially on satellite, and what we do on the web. This will grow together, and then we need kind of load balancing between the 2 worlds in an efficient way.
We'll take one more question. Yes, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I have a question for both of you, I think. From a technology perspective to becoming or moving more into the cloud, and from the market perspective, how do you feel about Europe and the different markets or the different countries? Are they ready for cloud, or is an on-premise solution still the preferred technology? Or
I would say this is obviously depending upon the customers, their size, their current operations. What I think in general, this is a key trend of the industry. So at some point in time, I think every operator will have some kind of cloudification of its solution. Now, the speed at which it's going to happen, as I said, is going to depend upon the different operators. What we see, for instance, is that new players that are not traditionally operating in the TV space as companies that have a direct relationship with the consumers, for instance, sports federations, are now thinking also about the cloud as a way, for instance, to operate in a way which is making the cost much lower, which is much more scalable, and they can go direct to consumer. You have examples in the US, for instance, with the Wrestling Federation, with the Baseball Federation, and now they have decided to go OTT and partially cloud, because then they can address directly consumers, and they disintermediate in some way or form some of the traditional aggregators or broadcasters. So in their case, there is an interest to go very fast to cloud because they don't have legacy, so it's fairly easy. Obviously, for companies like Deutsche Telekom with huge operations already, the speed at which you can cloudify your solution is not the same.
I can only confirm that, and I think the cloud is not something we would like to discuss about whether it's there or not. I mean, it's a fact, it's there, we are using it, and it's, I think, an essential part of our, I can only talk for that, for our TV strategy, to cloudify the production, but also the delivery of TV across countries. It's spanning rather wide. Okay.
So, gentlemen, this is a really bold strategy, unifying all of those different markets in the cloud. I do hope you will come back and talk to us again and give us an update and let us know how that's going, maybe next year.
Next year.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you very much, both of you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.